Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Rapping with the Rep. I'm State Representative Ken Gordon, and I'm here with my guest, Secretary Francisco Urena, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs in the Baker administration. Welcome to our show. It's our honor to have you.
Well, thank you so very much. What a great privilege it is to be here.
We've been working together quite well and quite hard over the last several years, working on issues that affect our veterans generally, and specifically in this district, we have the VA, we have Hanscom, and we have issues. We're focused right here on many veterans issues, and I'm happy that we've become a good partnership in working to benefit that.
Absolutely. It's definitely been just that, a great partnership and a great aspect of seeing what best practices we have here. Listen, the military installations that are in this district are very important not only to national security of the United States, but also to the economic development of this Commonwealth. And all the people that work in and around Hanscom, all the people that are the families of we working in the MIG-3 military installation of Children Community Compact, of the aspect of education. And you've been at the table, putting the sense of focus, best practices, and the sense of bringing the advocacy for your community and your constituents, more importantly.
Thank you very much. I'd like to talk a lot about that, but first I'd like our viewers to get a sense of of your background and what you bring to the table, because you have a quite interesting background.
Oh,
since you grew up.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I came to Massachusetts when I was 4 from the Dominican Republic, as my family immigrated to Lawrence. We lived there for about 5 years, and we moved down to Florida. Things were a little rough in Lawrence, and so did most of my growing up in South Florida. Joined the Marines at the age of 17, day after high school, and served our country for 8 years of active duty service at 2 American embassies in Syria and in Kyrgyzstan. And then I did a tour in Iraq as a tank commander in 2005 before returning home the next year. When I came home to Lawrence, I got involved in community service. It was a community access television studio, just much like this one. They gave me the opportunity to assist during the floods of Mother's Day in May of 2006. I was translating the message for the local community, seeing where they could get the assistance, and there's where I learned that there was a veteran service office, and that was having some challenges, and I was asked if I could give a hand. I started volunteering there for about 6 months while I was going to school in the evening, and next thing I knew, I was offered a job there, and I served that community for 4 years. Then I transitioned to the city of Boston for another 4 with Mayor Menino and Mayor Walsh. And then just a couple of years ago, Governor Baker asked me if I could join the team.
It's a fascinating background that you have. I mean, your commitment to public service came, as you say, early on.
Absolutely.
You decided to join the Marines out of high school. Mm-hmm. What went into your considerations then? I mean, I know we have some younger viewers now that are considering military service.
Absolutely. I was 15 when I first approached my recruiter. Anthony Torres was his name, and I still remember we keep in touch. And so I was a little young, and he says, but he kept me under his wing, and he would invite me to some of the meets that the poolies, and that's the term is described for the men and women that are joining the Marines. When I was the first senior of my high school to raise my right hand and essentially swear allegiance to our country. And the day after high school, I graduated on a Sunday, and Monday morning, I was on my way to boot camp in Paris Island.
Wow. And you worked in security in the embassies that you mentioned in
Correct.
Syria
and in Kyrgyzstan.
And in Kurdistan. That must have been fascinating assignments.
It definitely was. It was a hand selection team. I volunteered, and 3 years later I was hand selected for those posts. It was a very arduous aspect of training in Quantico, Virginia, and very high attrition rates. Essentially, we were the first Americans to arrive to Syria after 9/11. We got there in December 22nd of 9/11 right after September 11th in 2001.
We could do a whole show on that background. That's so interesting. And I can see why Governor Baker then tabbed you to join his administration after coming back to your hometown.
Sure.
Am I right that it seemed that you probably considered a career in public service right out of the public service you were doing in the military itself?
Absolutely. It was essentially, that's why I came home, to the aspect of being part of the community. My education was first and foremost important. I was essentially going to go to a school out of state. Then I found out what great values we have in our community colleges and also in the UMass school system. And that made the decision for me to stick around and be part of Massachusetts.
You went to UMass Lowell, is that right?
I did, yes.
That's great. Congratulations
on
all that you've done. I do want to talk about our veterans and the services that we provide to them. Massachusetts is annually considered the best state for providing services to our veterans, and I'm proud of that. Can you talk a little bit about what we provide, essentially why that is?
So we're so very proud, and as you mentioned, Rep, we do lead the nation when it comes to veteran services. There's no other state that does it like we do. We have a veteran service officer in a district or in every city and town across this Commonwealth. That's a commitment to our veterans. That is an aspect of not only the role of that individual, but the power that they bring to the table and the assets that they bring to the table. Financial assistance program for veterans and families, dubbed Chapter 115. It's what they do day in and day out. They also assist veterans and families with filing claims to the VA. So if a veteran has an injury, if a veteran has a hearing loss, through that office, Veterans Affairs, they're able to assist those veterans. They're also the main point of contact for any veteran family, any community event. So as we approach Memorial Day, it is going to be the veteran service officers of those offices. They're going to be leading and coordinating, ensuring that veterans who have gone before us are recognized and those that are still among us are honored.
And I know as a veteran yourself, you realize this, but it's so important for people to feel comfortable with the person that they can approach as their Veteran Services Officer. Here in Burlington, Chris Hannafin. In Bedford, Bill Lenahan. Lou Samaglia, who is, I think, one of the deans and most knowledgeable of the Veteran Services Officers here in the Commonwealth in Wilmington. And to feel comfortable, essentially, you know where the furniture is, you know where things are,
Absolutely.
And you know that your officer is looking out for you. And so you can ask that question. There's no question that's inappropriate. There's no question that you can't ask your own VSO.
That is what it makes the system so very much unique. They are essentially city and town employees who are invested in making sure that the towns and the communities that they work for remain sustainable and remain active of connection. They live and they work in the communities. They're a face that veterans and families trust, and they build that sense of connection, not only with the roles that they know, but the other services of a safety net, of every other point of contact. They are able to make a warm handoff to ensure that the veterans find their needs and find them locally and as soon as possible.
And what I appreciate is we have this running dialogue between your office and the legislature, so that if there is a need that we need to address through legislation, we can do that. Recently we passed the Valor Act 1, the Valor Act 2. We found that there was some trouble with people stealing things from graves of veterans, and we passed a law that would protect the markers. And things that people impersonating veterans in order to gain a benefit, a discount. These are real issues, and it's it's an insult to people who really wore the uniform that other people are creating that impersonation. So last year we passed that law, and it's been an important working relationship that we do this together.
Absolutely. The aspect of us being number one in the country is not the aspect of just veteran service officers. It is a lot to do with the legislature to ensure that they pass sensible laws that protect and honor veterans. And there's always something going on, but it's great legislators such as yourselves who are in tune with the community and always looking out for veteran and veteran families among your constituents, seeing what else you could do for them.
So let's talk a little bit about this district. As you mentioned when we were starting our program, we have the presence of Hanscom Air Force Base, and that military base is responsible for $8.5 billion annually into our local economy, which affects Bedford, but also all of the surrounding communities, including Burlington. This was a study done by UMass. It's called the Donahue study. I know you're very familiar with that. And they studied bases around the state, finding the importance of these bases. And there's been a commitment from the state to, first of all, keeping that base vibrant.
Correct.
We need it.
Correct.
And then addressing the people who live there.
Right.
Can I talk a little bit about
we're
that?
very proud of Hanscom. It is the largest military installation that we have here in the Commonwealth. Not only is it important for the aspect of national security, but it's also very important for the aspect of the economic development that happens in and out of that base, the research, the tours of duty that so many men and women do in there, not just active duty military, but the civilian cadre of individuals that are in there putting the efforts of building and moving technology to the next phase. Not only technology is going to help our citizens in Massachusetts, but across the country and around the world.
Having this opportunity for me to serve in the legislature, I've been able to learn more and more about what we do at Hanscom and the surveillance that we do, the way that we work with the satellite systems. It's crucial work, crucial scientific and research work to benefit the military and our security all the time. The Air Force is just doing tremendous work.
No, it really is, and absolutely. And to that aspect, it's also the sacrifice of the family. You know, we have an all-volunteer force, and it is our duty to ensure that the families, their burdens upon them is the least impact that we can have. And because of that, I know that so many communities in and around Hanscom Air Force Base put an emphasis on the aspect of education of the children, and the aspect of assisting those military families transition in and out of those bases when they do their deployments, when they do their tours of duties, and when they rotate from year to year, as it must be with their contracts to be able to serve in the Commonwealth and especially here in Hanscom Air Force Base.
You know, I was at the elementary school at Hanscom a few weeks ago, and we talked about the number of students that go from kindergarten to grade 6 there in the middle school, and the answer is 0.
Sure.
There's hardly any kid that doesn't come in and get transferred at some point. And I know there's an expression you're familiar with. They say that the kids have roots that run wide, but they don't run deep, because they know they're going to be moving at some point soon. And so they create friendships, and many can adapt. And in many instances, there are issues that we can help those students with.
Sure.
We mentioned before the MIC-3, the Military Interstate Compact, to help the kids. And we've been working hard to take those lessons that we've learned at Bedford High School and at the Hanscom schools, the elementary and the middle school, and to apply those to kids that are the children of military families outside of this community. And we've been working all year to look for those opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And our Commissioner, Clark Garzali, who's a volunteer that chairs that commission, is a retired admiral. He brings, you know, a cadre of history of moving, I think 27 times he mentioned, because he grew up in a military family himself. So by the time he retired, I think his moves were in around 27 times. So that's the impact. And so it's not the aspect of just what's happening and what's great in Massachusetts, but it's also that network of nationwide connections that the MIC-3 is able to leverage to be able to assist a family that is transitioning. So if a military family is having a hard time adapting to the school systems, they miss the deadlines of registration, that's where this commission steps in place and ensures that no child is left behind, essentially, especially our military children.
You think about the challenge that our military children face. They come into Massachusetts and they have to pass the same exams, the same graduation requirements apply to them that apply to every other children in Massachusetts. The difference is most of our kids have been educated from kindergarten up and are prepared for this advancement. We know that our schools have a very high standard in Massachusetts. We're #1 in the country. With that comes also the challenge that if you're coming in from a different system as a junior or a sophomore in high school, you've got to catch up quick.
Oh, it truly is. And there's so many challenges in adapting to our educational system here in Massachusetts because we're #1. It's the aspect of many children don't have that privilege to be in a Massachusetts school as they're growing up. So it's that focus of wherever they're stationed. Again, around the country, around the world, they may be living, and now their parents are tasked with moving to Massachusetts. And so it's making that adaptation. But it's commissions like the MIC-3 that are assisting them in a point of contact where there's a phone number that a family could call, a website that a family could look up, an email that a family could make that connection. And essentially it goes from any public and private institutions that may be coming from, or even the aspect of a homeschooling where they are transferring into a Massachusetts school.
One of the issues that involves Bedford in particular with respect to the education of the children of military families living at Hanscom is the funding for the expenses of that education. And going long before you began and I began in this service here, what would happen is that basically there was about $1 million shortfall in the cost of educating the kids, about 100 kids who live at Hanscom and come to the high school. As I said, there is an elementary school, there's a middle school, so the children of Hanscom families stay there through that school. It's run by the Lincoln school system. Since 1959, the kids, when they get to 9th grade, come to Bedford. And we recognized early on that the state has a role in contributing to those expenses for those kids. Each year the legislature has, through the amendment process of the budget, has come up with a proposal to provide money for Hanscom kids as well as Joint Base Cape Cod. But this year, and the reason I bring this up, this year it was in the governor's budget. For the first time, the governor right up front put in $1.3 million to be split between Bedford and Bourne, which educates those kids. so that it would not be an uphill fight in the budget that we're about to
Right.
engage in on the House side. So I know you had a hand in providing the information and the advice to include that
Absolutely.
right off the bat in this budget. It's an
Yeah.
important issue.
Well, listen, Governor Baker understands as somebody who has experience in the aspect of government, in his stints in previous aspect of state government. So to him, once that conversation came up, it was a sure thing. There's been this history. We want to make sure that that's not a challenge. We want to make sure that we're keeping education number one in our state starts with conversations such as those, addressing those shortfalls, and then seeing how we could assist our communities. Essentially, that's what it is, assisting our communities to continue to put emphasis in supporting not only the military families, but the children and the next generation of Americans, the next generation of Bay State residents who are going to need that basis of education to move forward.
Yes, it's very important. It's important to the town itself because the students at Bedford High School learn a lot from the experiences that the kids who live at Hanscom bring to them. They've got experience around the country, around the world in
Sure.
some instances, and the culture that they can bring in is something that they otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to. So it's a great partnership, and Bedford is proud to be involved with that. And I know that John Sills, who is the superintendent in Bedford, is also a member of
That's
the
correct.
MIC3, also
Absolutely.
lending his expertise.
And really has, and he also has great influence with the superintendents of Massachusetts and that network. And so we're able to not only bring some best practices to the table, but also give that sense of outreach, because we know that while you have a concentration here in Bedford of children going to schools in Burlington and around Lincoln and Sudbury, but some of the other communities in the 351 other cities and towns
Right.
may have one or two military children who are National Guardsmen and women who may be activated, reservists who may be activated, and their children are going to those schools. And so how can we provide a sense of support? And it probably is much easier to do it here when there's a bigger population, but when you're dealing with one or two children and schools may not be familiar with the aspect of transition and military and moving around, and they may not know what those pressure points that those children are facing when a father or a mother is deployed, or in some cases both, is that sense of support that we could give and that sense of advocacy that we could provide, and that's being done here locally.
Right, and that Governor Baker saw that. He saw that in the representative who covers Hanscom and the school superintendent who educates the kids in the high school. I mean, we see things that go on from kids because we've got a concentration,
Correct.
like you say, of them, 100 kids.
Right.
And so in these communities that have one or two, it may be that John Sills has seen that.
Yes.
So this is how we've handled that,
Yeah.
and it's been successful. So let's try it out there. So it's a great way to support our veterans in the other communities in Massachusetts. In addition to that, as you mentioned, Hanscom, the presence of Hanscom is so important to our regional economy, not just for one town.
Sure.
And so I've spoken to a number of military families and retired military who say, we talk in the military, the officers talk, and the enlisted people talk. And we realize if we have kids of high school age and we can get to Hanscom, if we can get transferred there, our kids will get a great education. So it's a great reason for the military to continue to support Hanscom here as a resource.
Absolutely, it truly is.
So along with that, we also have the presence of the VA hospital,
Yes.
also in Bedford and also serving our community. I'm proud that the Bedford VA serves as a model for VAs around the country. Have you had conversations about that? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We do have 4 major installations of VA institutions in Massachusetts, very unique to the rest of the country and even neighboring New England states. We have Jamaica Plain, we have Bedford, we have Brockton, we have Central and Western Mass, and Northampton as another satellite facility of the aspect of Central Mass in the Worcester clinics. Along that, we also have vet centers strategically placed throughout the state, 7 of them, where veterans could go and receive counseling, especially combat veterans of no matter what era they served in. Themselves and their families are able to walk in to those facilities, to a vet center, and receive the counseling services free of charge. Sometimes right the same day, many a times private and group counseling styles, but the aspect of putting focus on the families is very important. As we talk about the Bedford VA, is a great campus. It's a phenomenal facility that provides so many aspects of healthcare and mental health And then also there's some housing there, not only at the new development of Bedford Green, but also for veterans with dementia,
Right.
which affects so many aspects of the safety and the well-being and the aspect of independence of families. And so when a veteran is not able to live independently, it's a good opportunity for them to place an application. And being here, especially where a family could visit them and be close to them in a sense, is such a great asset to them.
Yeah, it remains a welcoming community. And as we talked about the VSOs. In that same way, between the hospital, between, as you say, the Bedford Green, which is a new apartment complex that's gone up that houses formerly homeless veterans, and now they have a home.
Yes.
They pay what they can through a formula, but they take pride now in the home that they have, and it's a way of life that they now engage in.
It is a great community that goes on there, but
Right.
it is also a great example of what can happen to public and private partnerships. It is federal property where that housing is placed. It is local residents now that they could have that sense of pride in being in Bedford and being part of the community. But it's also the aspect of otherwise that could have just not been there. And where else could we place development of veteran housing, 55 plus, which is a needed segment of the population when it comes to a deficit in affordable housing, and we're able to solve that. So we're very proud of again, the leadership, not only federally, but also locally, that says, yes, why not have it here with us? Why not include those residents? Veterans are an asset. No matter what era, what age, some of them have challenges, but many of them are successful and are successful people that want to be part of a community and are being able to be part of that. And the Bedford Green development gives that opportunity to 77 veteran residents.
Yes, it's a great point that you're making, because we do talk about supporting our veterans, but there's a good reason that we do that, because they contribute so much. They have when they served our country, but they continue to.
Sure.
They bring so much to our community. They teach our children.
Sure.
And our children benefit from that. The state has also reached out and helped. You mentioned Chapter 115. Through those benefits, the state helps the towns to provide for many of the benefits that veterans get. You've taken special attention to Bedford because of the role that Bedford has played. And we talk about the education
Sure.
of the military families. Now we're talking about the residents on a federal piece of property. So we appreciate the partnership that we have, and the fact that we call and we talk to you, you pick up the phone, and we engage in this dialogue to benefit our veterans. And it's, again, it's been a very worthwhile and meaningful partnership.
Oh, thank you so very much. And essentially, that's what it is a partnership. We're all in this together. And it's how can we leverage our collective wealth to be able to promote and recognize and honor our veterans, and being able to assist those that might need it in the very dire time of need. That is why I'm very proud and I'm a big supporter of our network of veteran service officers. We remain committed to assisting veterans. There is a 75% share that the Commonwealth reimburses cities and towns, and 100% when it comes to the aspect of any homeless services. Because first and foremost, we are focused on the aspect of ending veterans' homelessness across the Commonwealth. We want to place that focus and that commitment. Secondly, we also want to ensure that there is no doubt that when helping a veteran, that somebody says we don't have the money, and therefore we make that commitment to reimburse those at 100% level, because is the right thing to do. Our programs are there to ensure that we continue to recognize, again, not only the veterans, but also the families. And as we come across Memorial Day, I want to make a very special request to our community to join any veteran organization event, any community event that your community, wherever you're watching this today, whether it's Burlington or any other local access television, that you're able to participate. These events are not just for veterans, these events are for the community, and therefore take part in honoring the sacrifice and the service as we approach Memorial Day of those who have gone before us, but are also remembering so many Gold Star families that we have in the Commonwealth. Those are mothers, fathers, wives, husbands who have lost a loved one while in service to our country or due to an aspect of their service to our country, and being able to bring those families in any event we can throughout the year.
And those are very important comments. We have Gold Star families right here in Burlington, the McDonald family. We have in Bedford, the Hart family, the Desiato family. We're affected by that. Our community is, as is our Commonwealth, and we do have wonderful remembrances, ceremonies that go on throughout the morning in both communities, and in Wilmington with Lou Samaglia organizing that throughout. In fact, Lou's got it throughout the weekend.
Yes.
And it's important that we show our veterans that we're there with them.
Sure.
One other thing that you've become involved with that we appreciate here in Burlington is the Skate for 22. It's an organization begun by Bobby Collinson, an Air Force and Army veteran, and Charlie Bobish, who's an Air Force veteran. And what they do is, the aspect is, or the idea is, let's get veterans together that might otherwise be in isolation, who are alone, and let's get them to get involved with an activity. Their idea is hockey. It could be a different sport, but that's meaningful to them. And they've organized hockey tournaments throughout the eastern Massachusetts, and you've dropped the puck, but more important, you've been involved with advice and support and mentoring these teams as they play each other, and as they've played alumni. They've played police and fire, and a Bruins alumni team, and it's a great opportunity to get together, for veterans to get together in the locker room to see how each other is doing.
Yeah, absolutely, and we call that term vet-togethers.
Very good.
The aspect of veterans coming together to talk about their challenges, and again, is the aspect of that common experience. They all went to boot camp, they all had that sense of camaraderie, and I think there's a gap in missing that camaraderie. There's only 1% of our population serving, so therefore any given town or city in Massachusetts has about 7% veterans. So there's about 93% of people who do not understand that experience. So creating a venue, and here is the aspect of hockey as a sport, to be able to do that. We do the same aspects of promotion in fishing. We do the same aspects of promotion in many other sports. We do the same aspect of promotions in any aspects of vet-togethers, where veterans are coming to see how they can make an impact, assist another veteran in need, and at the end of the day, is having the sense of camaraderie that they yearn for.
That's what it is. It's, one veteran will see in another one, you know what, let's talk about this. You're not alone, and we can talk this out, and then there's an awareness of things that are going on. The rate of suicide among veterans is alarmingly high. 22 per day around the country, and that's what motivates this group to get together and make sure that we have each other's back.
And that's a good sense of motivation. But let me touch on bases on the aspect of suicide. Suicide is an American challenge, and we can't forget that. Suicide is something that affects Americans at about 107 per day.
Right.
Are committing suicide. So is the aspect of making sure that the populations that we have a sense of connection with, our veterans, out of those 20 to 22, about 12 of them are VA patients. So how do we find those other veterans that are not part of the VA? Encouraging that we have class acts of veterans and institutions here in Massachusetts. If you're a veteran, I think you should sign up for the VA, especially here being locally. You take a look at Jamaica Plain, for example. There's a bus that comes from White River Junction. Veterans driving 2.5, 3 hours to come to an appointment in Boston, when we have a great class facility, first-class facility here in Bedford. And I think it's an aspect of making sure that if we believe that should be there for the next generation, it's up to us as veterans to sign up for it.
You're absolutely right. And I hear only good things from the patients. They're the people who use it. So they're very proudful. They take pride that we have this.
It's not a perfect system, but nothing is. And it's the sense of those veteran service officers that if you're having a challenge, if you have a sense of you felt veterans I come across, I continue to use the VA because I believe in it. I want to be in touch with veterans when I go there. I want to learn their challenges, and I want to also learn what we're doing great, not only as a state, but also as a federal and local system. And I hear nothing but great stories from veterans coming up to me saying, this is the experience I had. This is how much I saved in my aspect of prescriptions, where I'm only paying $8 as opposed to before I was paying $64 for a prescription. Those are the connections that we have with the VA. Those are the aspects that we have. But we also get veterans that sometimes have challenges. Their appointment wasn't when they thought it was, the aspect of they needed a service, and we're able to intercept and advocate for their behalf, and sometimes close the loop because we have those sense of connections, and that's who your VSOs are, doing those calls each and every day.
You're right. And I want to tell you folks watching, especially you veterans, Secretary Urena has been there. We've been to the VA together several times.
Oh.
We've been on the Bedford Green
Oh.
together several times.
Yeah.
You've rolled up your sleeves and got to work on it, and we
Yeah.
do appreciate that. You know, you walk the walk as well as discuss these issues.
Absolutely, that's a connection. I know we're wrapping up, Brett, but let me also remind the community that volunteers is such a great opportunity. If any person that's watching wants to volunteer, the VA in Bedford is a great option for that. Our two soldiers' home, whether it's Chelsea or Holyoke, I know it's a little bit far from here, but the Chelsea Soldiers' Home is also another location where people, veterans and non-veterans, could come in and volunteer. Whether it's visiting veterans who may not have any families to visit them, as we do in and around February, or throughout the aspect of the year, there is an opportunity to volunteer, make an impact, both young and old.
Right.
And I also encourage families to bring their children
Yep.
to Memorial Day services as we approach Memorial Day.
Yes. Well, Secretary Urena, thank you very much for coming on our show. It's been a delightful and conversation. I'm honored to have had you here. Thank you very much.
Representatives, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for coming.
Thank you.
That'll do it for another episode of Wrapping It with the Rep. Tune in next time.